Well, believe it or not, as I said, we are still in the same chapter of the book of Acts we were in last week with the call of Saul, later to be known as Paul. You know, there's so many people in the Bible with multiple names or with name changes. It's totally normal. Today's text also has someone with two names, one with an Aramaic name and one with a Greek name. So Tabitha is her Aramaic name, Dorcas is her Greek name, but interestingly enough, this is a good little party trick tidbit for you to take to your Mother's Day brunch. They both mean gazelle. We know a surprising amount about Tabitha. She is called a disciple, which, interestingly enough, is the only instance of a woman being called a disciple in the New Testament, in the whole of the New Testament. This is the only place where the feminine use of that Greek word takes place. She was devoted to good works and acts of charity. She was loved and befriended by a group of widows who wanted to show Peter the tunics and clothing that Tabitha had made in her life. So we know that she was a maker of clothes. In ancient societies, people did not have a lot of clothing options. This probably goes without saying. You might have one or two things, and you wore them literally until they wore out, and then you needed to replace it. There was no fast fashion, no Forever 21, RIP. There was only slow fashion. So knowing these few details about Tabitha, we can make some educated guesses about her life. She was devoted to good works and acts of charity. She was called a disciple. It seems to be a safe bet that she used her clothing business to support those who were in need and to support other followers of the way. Remember last week, we learned from an earlier passage in Acts that the earliest groups of Jesus followers were called the Way. So if Tabitha had a successful enough business to give to others, she probably also had financial resources to support the Way, which we acutely see other instances of throughout Acts and Paul's letters to the earliest churches. Women were sometimes in positions to even bankroll these communities by providing financial resources, by hosting groups in their homes, by feeding the members. So it goes without saying, but must be said, that women have always been an integral part of the church. Duh. But the other details in our church today, or in our text today, that I want us to focus on are actually the very tangible scenes of intimacy and vulnerability that we see in our text today. Tabitha becomes ill and dies, and we're told that she was washed in the practice of Jewish purification called tahara, which means purification, literally, that's what that word means, or tahara, prepares the body for burial and covers it in a white shroud. When I worked at the synagogue in Chicago, the temple had a group of trained people called the Hever Kadisha. It literally means holy society. A lot of synagogues will have this group of people that they can call on when you need to perform the tahara when people die. What a tender act, truly, to ritually purify a body and prepare it for burial. This includes pouring water over different parts of the body, different organs, saying different psalms and different prayers, really showing honor and respect to that life and helping that life usher on into oneness with God. So this is the first scene of intimacy and vulnerability that we're told about in our text. The next scene is when the widows are showing Peter the tunics and other clothing that Tabitha made. Isn't this what we do when someone dies that we love? We look for what they've left behind that remains of them. I have my paternal grandmother's bathroom mirror in my bathroom that I use every day, and I think of her. I have my maternal grandmother's Chanel No. 5 perfume that smells like her. It's gotta be so old. I probably should never open it and wear it. It's probably just so toxic at this point. But how long should perfume really last? But I love that I have that bottle of her perfume and it reminds me of her. I have my friend Karen's bracelet that she gave me years ago before she died. And now I wear it and think of her. This is a scene of intimacy, of vulnerability. Can't you hear these women talking to Peter and one another? See what Tabitha made, they said. She was so gifted, so talented. This one she made to fit me perfectly. This one she made for the widow next door. These she made to sell in the market. She had a real eye for color and for fit, don't you think? She paid great attention to detail. She would sing songs while she worked and tell stories to pass the time. She was doing a great deed for the community. Just behold her handiwork. Here, take this one with you to remember her by. She would want you to have it. No, do, take it. The next scene is an intimate look at Peter in prayer. Did he pray for Tabitha to be resurrected? Did anybody ask him to pray for that? Not that we're told or not that we know of. Prayer is intimate, is vulnerable. We are opening ourselves up to God in a way that nobody else might ever know. We are confessing, we are acknowledging deep truth and deep pain. We are pleading, begging, asking. We are tentative and ashamed. We are embarrassed. We are grateful. We are without words. We are who we are before our Creator. The next scene. Peter, after saying, "Tabitha, get up," gave her his hand and helped her up. This intimate, tender act, reaching out a hand, having it be grasped, helping her up. Do y'all remember that movie from the early 90s, Sleepless in Seattle? I've seen it a million times. It's one of my favorites. If you have not seen Sleepless in Seattle, this is your homework. So this scene with Peter reaching out to take Tabitha's hand made me think of Tom Hanks' character talking about meeting his wife when he's on the phone with the radio host. This is what he says: "I was just taking her hand to helping her out of a car. And I knew it. It was like magic." And then, of course, there's that wonderful scene from Pride and Prejudice where Matthew McFadden, playing Mr. Darcy, helps Elizabeth Bennet, played by Keira Knightley, into her carriage. He takes her hand and helps her into the carriage, and then, this is cinematic brilliance. There's a close-up on his hand flexing because, they touched hands. Swoon. So intimate, so tender, so simple. Have you ever been sad and a friend held your hand as you shed tears? Have you ever shared happy news and a friend grabbed your hand and jumped up and down with you? When I was a little girl, my grandpa would always give my hand little squeezes when we would hold hands around the dinner table. Do you hold hands to pray around your dinner table? Do you hold hands to pray when you're standing in a circle, when you're finishing something in a group? Holding hands, it's connectional, it's relational, it's intimate, it's vulnerable. You're sometimes self-conscious about your hands, like, I don't want to hold hands, it's too much. Or like, what if my hands are sticky or mucky? Or what if your hand is gross? Or germs, COVID, stress, no holding hands. Then we did the elbow thing, and then we did the toe thing, and it's hard holding hands. It's vulnerable. And the reason why I'm pointing out all these scenes of intimacy and vulnerability is because we might not ordinarily connect intimacy and vulnerability with resurrection. That might not be an intuitive connection for us. We might connect power and might with resurrection. I mean, Christ conquered the grave. That sounds pretty powerful to me. But we would be short-sighted to forget the very vulnerable way that Jesus lived and died. I mean, the very fact that God came to us in human form is intimate and vulnerable. Carried by Mary in her womb, born from her body, that is vulnerable and messy and dangerous. Jesus lived this life in human form, which means that by his very nature, he was vulnerable to that which we all are in these mortal bodies. Germs, sickness, feelings, relationships, aging, loss, grief. He especially died in a way meant to humiliate and demean our God, willing to go so low. These scenes of intimacy and vulnerability in this resurrection story remind us of the intimacy and vulnerability in resurrection. That it is through being willing to give generously of ourselves, to be willing to risk humiliation and discomfort, to be the first to say, I'm sorry, to be tender and gentle and forgiving and patient in this world that tells us that those are signs of weakness. To ask what it is that God would have us do that aligns with her values and not those of this twisted society that want us to compare and compete and condescend. So since Easter, I've been asking where you're seeing signs of life in your midst. I think a baby's cry is certainly one of these signs of life in our midst, a beautiful reminder in this world. Maybe it is also in fresh flowers. Maybe it's in ducklings on the river. But maybe it's in the healing and reconciliation that comes when we take the risk to be vulnerable, to share intimately, to open our hearts up to the hope of the resurrection that says death does not have the final word. God is not done yet. The story is not over. New life is in our midst. It's scary. It is. We are opening ourselves up to disappointment, to heartbreak, to loss and grief and things not going our way. And that is real. That is a part of this human life. But maybe, just maybe, we will reach out our hand and we will be led, guided, encouraged. We will be met and brought into new life. Thanks be to God. Amen.